Hello, and welcome to your mini lesson on care coordination, referrals, and follow-up. As we mentioned before about care coordination process, we often see that there's a cycle which begins with our needs assessment, usually done in an initial meeting with the client, where there we take some time to develop a goal action plan and help in prioritizing and decision making. And from there we move on to our job as community health workers to have a knowledge of our service area, connect them to services, and allow them space and time for follow-up to get that feedback about the services that we are recommending for them. So the first step of that, and of course as community health workers, you are embedded in the community and hopefully you have some awareness about your local service area. If you do not, it's highly recommended that you take some time to be able to assess that for yourself. But part of what we need to know about our local service area are the range and types of services that are already offered and available for clients. What their eligibility requirements are. It can often be helpful when it comes to clients if you know that there are certain applications that need to be done, that you let them know ahead of time of any documentation that they should bring, since you're really familiar with certain application processes. It is also helpful to know location and nearest of public transportation, or the easiest way or location closest to a client if a certain program or organization has different offices. Of course, hours of operation, and this is key. As mentioned before, often for COVID, a lot of locations and organizations had to make changes to their hours, and of course with staffing needs, those may vary. Things like phone number and website, knowing if that website is current and it has the best information, or if it's better to call when it comes to regards to a different type of service. I think I need to pause it. Do I hit end or do I just hit pause? Sorry, that's fine.
And then I gotta pick it up.
Here, I'll go back to the beginning of the
Go to
slide.
the beginning of the slide and then clap.
Okay. Just do it again. Oh, that's not
I mean, the mic doesn't pick up vibration. But then,
There we go. So as a community health worker, one of the key areas as you work within the community is having knowledge of the local service area. Things like the range and type of services being offered, knowing what is already available to clients, what their eligibility requirements. It can be helpful to let a client know ahead of time what documentation they need to bring in preparation for any sort of application or submission on their behalf. Location and nearness to public transportation, or maybe just directions or knowing the location of any offices that may be closer for certain organizations who may have different locales. Hours of operation. This is key, as mentioned before. COVID affected highly the operation of a lot of organizations, as well as having limited staffing needs. So being able to know where to access and what changes might have been made to hours of operation in case those are posted anywhere. Things like phone number and website, knowing whether the website is updated regularly and has the most up-to-date information, or perhaps the phone number is the best option to use. Name and phone number of a contact person. Obviously, it can be a little bit easier for a client to be able to get assistance in a referral source if they know precisely who to ask for and what to ask for. And of course, any other additional notes you might have about an organization. We always speak about our local service area as being rather large and encompassing. You might not have direct knowledge or direct access to it. Many organizations already have databases, and there are online databases also available to help you get familiar with your local service area and what items and what services and what programs clients have, and oftentimes eligibility requirements in that. Things that are additional to know, especially when we mentioned before, when it comes to culture and language, that can be barriers. Knowing whether these organizations are ones that already have somebody who speaks the language, or if they require some assistance with you working as translator. We all know that referrals can be a variety of services, such as nonprofits. They can be public, private, or faith-based, health or social services, and that may be, depending on your organization, you might need to be able to assist clients when it comes to accessing insurance and completing and actually working with clients to complete the application and submit them. Of course, after we've given the referrals to our clients, then we have our follow-up. We always want to be able to identify any questions and concerns about the referral provided, assist them and support them with any of the barriers that we've talked about before in order for them to access services, celebrate any success of and any movement toward meeting a goal. This is key. Sometimes a lot of people get discouraged with regards to completing applications and referrals just because perhaps they are not able to receive the services. But understanding that any progress is good progress, and any information that you gain will be information that you will be able to utilize moving forward, whether with this client or with another one. We want to reinforce the benefits and definitely encourage clients to be able to use the services. We talk often about empowering our client for them to have a knowledge base of knowing where to go to meet their needs. So definitely we want to make sure that they are using the services that are readily available for them. We also use FollowUp as an ability to check in also with your team members or supervisor. As mentioned before, many organizations already have databases with referrals that they often utilize, and it also allows a chance to brainstorm and update together about any services, especially if there's any question about whether funding is still available or if you're unfamiliar with the specific service, to be able to get some guidance on how best to guide your client. Key to care coordination is documentation. As I've spoken about before, documentation is very important, and if you don't document it, then there is no proof that you completed the action. So things to remember when documenting your care coordination and our referrals is knowing that providing the information, documenting referrals, it can help improve services not only for your client but for other clients within your programs. It also allows you to track the services your programs provide, which of course means for better quality. It allows you to track your metrics for evaluation, especially if you are a nonprofit where you get specific funding and it needs to be audited, and any sort of additional information that has to do with a funding source. We also know that all the programs have procedures for documentation. You should complete them as fully as possible and know which documentation may apply depending on what type of services you're providing. A reminder to just use specific and non-judgmental language, especially when it comes to referrals and clients perhaps not following through, or if you spend a lengthy amount of time, it can get rather frustrating as a community health worker. We want to make sure that we are taking away our perceptions and keeping to the facts of what the client is reporting. We also want to make sure that all of our information is concise and brief to the best of our abilities. Other key areas of care coordination overall in general that you will need to utilize in practice is networking. When we talk about referral services and knowing what other organizations are doing, we want to make sure that you are using your best contacts and other services in your area with other community partners. There's also the factor of privacy and confidentiality. We want to be sure that we are protecting the client's information and we're not sharing that information unless they give us direct authorization. Make sure you know what your organization's policies are with regards to sharing information about your client, as well as when it comes to submitting applications on their behalf, or whether our client has to do that for themselves. As mentioned before, be clear at what time you have to break privacy and confidentiality, if it has to do with any sort of reporting a danger to themselves or to other people. And of course, one of the key factors in care coordination is yourself as a community health worker. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're not becoming overly invested. Oftentimes as community health workers, it can be very easy to become so invested in our clients that their outcomes become our outcomes and how we measure our success. And that is why it's so key to be able to document and know what our actual metrics are, as opposed to going along with what a client's needs being addressed as a measure of success. In summary, we just want to remind you that when you're meeting one-on-one with a client, we want to make sure that we're keeping up to date regularly on service area. Take some time outside of your schedule to make sure that you are keeping yourself as up to date as possible, to know how to best connect with the different resources, hence why we talked about networking being so important. And following up with clients and your team for accountability for both yourself and as a provider, but also in meeting your clients' goals and their priorities. And know that care coordination, even though we said it was a cycle and it seems to be pretty easy to go from one step to the other, know that it is rarely linear. We may require continuous adjustment along the process cycle, and you might have to go back and forth on different steps depending on the goals and the current needs of the client. So thank you for joining me here for care coordination, and I wish you luck in meeting with your clients.